What was your I was at the right place at the right time moment? Last year I was going through some bad months. I was genuinely depressed, alone, and all around ready to give up on life. During one of my classes, the prof asked us to get into groups. I just nodded at whoever was sitting nearest to me and joined their group of 3. I didn't really contribute much, but it didn't go horribly. I just wanted to leave. Later that day, as I'm walking to my bus stop to go home, I ran into 2 of the guys from that group. They invited me to get coffee and burgers with them. I was about to say no and just go home to make my own coffee, but something deep down urged me to go with them. So I did. Best decision of my life. Those guys are now my best friends. Almost a year later, it turns out they were going through some of the same things at the time, and through each other we've developed a great positive group of friends. They genuinely changed my life. That's awesome. It was the day before the big Halo 2 release. To give a little background, it was undoubtedly the biggest and most anticipated releases up to that point. I walked into a 7-Eleven in Riverhead, NY to get some coffee on my break and noticed a small cardboard display behind the counter with 5/7 Halo 2 copies. I was confused and asked if these were for sale. The young girl said yeah, I guess so. I asked how much are they. She was unsure, so asked the manager. He was unsure, so he just made up a number, $20 he said. Give me 5 copies, I said. I walked into my job, a freaking legend, 5 copies of Halo 2 a day before release, sold the remaining copies to my friends for $60, made $160 and was the belle of the ball for the rest of the day. I worked at GameStop during this time. That was means for termination for selling before street date. Usually they had seals on them saying do not sell before such and such. I was 6 years old and my brother was 8. I lost him at a beach house. I asked like 10 adults, have you seen my brother? They all said no. I went onto the beach and was about to give up. I looked towards the ocean's horizon and saw a little dot on the water waving its arms. Apparently my brother was taken out into the ocean by the current. My father swam out to save him. If it wasn't for me, no one might have noticed. Right time, right place. He went on to help countless other lives in Romania and Mexico by providing low-income housing and helping poor homeless children. I generally take credit for all of his good deeds. My wife and I had gone out to dinner in Uptown here in Charlotte, NC, and just when we were finishing up our meal, the waitress come to our table. She looks at both of us and asked, "What are you guys doing tonight?" Since I thought she was joking, I just replied, "Dining WU." Why? Her response, "No, you're not. You're going to see the Hornets." And she placed 2 tickets to the game on our table. She explained that her manager had bought the staff tickets to the game and 2 people didn't show up. So they looked around the restaurant and chose us. BC, we seemed nice. The game was great. No, you're not. Really expected a threesome at this point. Bit of a long story, but absolutely relevant. Walking back to my dorm in my freshman year of college, bumped into my roommate and a few friends who were heading to watch a soccer match up on the field not too far away. They asked if I wanted to join them. I said sure, as I had nothing else planned. Went to the game. Happened to sit near a girl I thought was cute. I talked to her a bit, and she was talking about running for our student government. I liked the sound of that and thought it'd be a good opportunity to spend some time getting to know her. Fast forward a bit, and I enjoyed student government, so I ran each year. Made friends with a guy who went on to be vice president of our student government. He graduated about a year before I did. I'm graduating and he calls me up to say he got an internship offer at Disney and couldn't keep his current job, which was teaching game design for the summer at a pretty prestigious school. He asked me if I wanted his current job so he could go take the Disney one without leaving them short-handed. He also had his apartment freshly leased, so I just had to pay the bills on utilities and all that while I was there. I bailed on the job I was planning on taking. Packed up and moved almost immediately. TLDR. I almost literally stumbled into a great job in a different state that led to where I am now. Dang, but now I'm wondering what happened to the cute girl. I was working in a very emotionally toxic environment. A friend once accurately compared it to being in a relationship with an alcoholic. When it was good, it was great. When it was bad, it was horrible. And I found out on a Thursday that I didn't have a job on Tuesday, the next day I was supposed to work. My boss flat out said that he didn't figure it would be a big deal for me because my husband had a full-time job. So, originally the next week another friend had wanted to work on a project on Tuesday, but I wasn't going to be available because I had to work. So I called him up and said, I'm available. We met up on Tuesday, and he said, why are you available now? And I told him what happened. He said, wait a minute, and went into his office to make a phone call. He came back out and said, you have a job interview in an hour. Thankfully, I had my USB drive with my resume on it with me, so I could print out copies, but I didn't have time to go home and change clothes. So, I went to this interview wearing jeans shorts, a t-shirt, and sandals, got hired, and started my new job the next day. I've been there 9 years now. Nice to hear things worked out for you. One can never overestimate the value of friends. Traveled to Spain to get to my job. When engaging my phone and Wi-Fi, my inbox was flooded with messages asking if I was okay. Turns out the airport I just flew from had been bombed. I was working cleanup at a festival in town, and there were lots of food drink vendors. I was near the Red Bull truck as they were closing up. They asked me if I wanted some leftover Red Bull from open cases. I said sure. They handed me 3 almost full cases. Freaking heck, mate. That would have lasted me at least 6 days. Shoot's expensive too. When I was shooting TV news sports in Boston, I captured Larry Bird fracturing his back in a scrimmage. I was the only one who caught it. Within 24 hours it was seen all over the world. How I found my cat. I felt like walking home one day and took the long way I never do. I was untangling my headphones when I hear this little crying noise. I walk over thinking it was a hurt dog, but no, it was 2 tiny kittens. I stayed for a few to make sure mom didn't come back, but no signs, so I took them with me. Got them to a vet and kept one, and my sister has the other one. Now I have a fluffy butthole named Peter that lives with me. He's a jerk, and I really expected one of those Hallmark moments you see on FB where the rescued animal and the person have the closest relationship, but I was wrong, lol. I love him though and wouldn't trade him for anything. If I had taken the subway or had my headphones in already, I wouldn't have heard them. So definitely right time, right place. Not but my so found a kitten under his car. In that he opened the door to his car, the kitten ran between his legs and then collapsed from exhaustion. And has ever been scared of us. We nursed him back to health for his first 4 months of life with a crap tons of vet visits and meds. And now he is asleep on my tummy. Got an opportunity to purchase a foreclosure house out of the blue. I had always lived in apartments and my parents' place while in college, so it was a big step. I was able to get qualified for a loan and put in an offer. Because I was a first-time home buyer, I was able to beat everyone else because I wanted to live in the house and not flip it. I eventually refinanced again a year later to make some improvements, and now I own a home that I owe $95k on, and it's worth nearly $180k. I had never thought about buying a house at this point in life, but it worked out great as I'm only a block away from my parents and closer to family and friends. I am actually trying to sell my house and move back closer to family and friends. We have been happily living about an hour away from everyone, but now we miss it. Hopefully per house sells quickly and we can move before the snow flies. Tripped over a squirrel once. Still don't understand how the universe aligned to allow that to happen. The squirrel seemed equally confused as to what happened, and we stared at each other in mutual dumbfoundedness for a good few seconds. Unfortunately, no, I did not get proof. Was not expecting to trip on a squirrel while sending a text. I feel like this is the squirrel's fault. NHS local dealer apparently had a contact in the sheriff's office that would give him a heads up before they showed up. I was there to buy like a dime. He gets to that phone call while I'm there. Hangs up, says looks like it's a fire sale, and tosses me a few ounces of much better weed than I was looking to buy. I asked what I could get for 20. He tossed me more and said leave before I charge you, while laughing. You lucky bastard. I would have skipped like a schoolgirl all the way home. My family got crappy seats to a hockey game since they were expensive and there was 4 of us going. After the first period we're walking around to go get food and a man with 4 VIP club tickets walks up to us and asked if we had good seats. We said not really and he said here take mine, I've got to go. Handed them to us and left. When we got to the seats we were blown away by how good they were. Such a kind gesture. A guy for the Minnesota Timberwolves used to have courtside seats from 1989 to 2007 for his business. He went to literally every single home game. When he didn't have clients at the games WTH him, I guess he would ask some of the team's reps to find a group of people to come sit courtside. The only stipulation being there had to be one child in the group. Bilbies was his name. I went to my college's student center and a janitor approached me and said there were leftovers from an event that finished up. He said if I didn't take them then they'd be thrown out. I walked out of there with 2 24 packs of Mountain Lightning, Walmart equivalent of Mountain Dew. The next week I was back in the student center and another event had just finished. I was approached by another janitor who said they were wrapping up. You know the drill. I walked away with a box of fresh donut holes. Mountain Lightning LOL. Took my dad's truck out four-wheeling in the woods without him knowing. A friend that was with me ended up losing the window crank for the passenger door while we were out. A week later, my dad goes out for a ride on his dirt bike. He comes home and guess what he found? That window crank. He just happened to stop at the exact same spot. I didn't notice the crank laying there. I was grounded for a month. Twist, it's the spot that overlooks the nude hot springs. Friend of my father growing up worked at a gas station in his early 20s. In the 70s. He's working one day and this guy pulls into his gas station driving an older model. For the time, Ferrari. Dad's friend starts going off about the car. How beautiful it is, all its specs and really just talking to the owner. Guy makes a quip about selling it to him for $1. Dad's friend brushes it off, but the guy laughs and says, I'm serious kid. Older guy in the Ferrari wasn't joking. And sold it to him for the measly sum of $1 freaking. The guy was super wealthy, going through a divorce with a woman who was intent on bleeding him dry. He was selling things off just to spite his wife, who had a favorite car. Guess which one it was? Kid got a literal Ferrari for $1 while working some crap job pumping gas. Talk about the right place at the right time. Best part, he didn't go right out and wrap it around a tree the next day. He kept it for a few years and ended it up selling it for an obviously sizable profit. Considering he got it for $1, that profit is insane. Also, middle of the night, found a teenager that crashed with her scooter, applied some first aid, made some calls and got her to some medical attention and home. Nothing that changed my life for the better, but for sure one of the funniest moments of my life. Me and my pal got back to his house after playing football down the park. His parents are home, as well as his brother. We knocked on his brother's door and walk straight in to find him beating his dong to some pee. He shouts at us. We laugh and leave. My pal walks into the kitchen and tells his mum that his brother wants him to go to his room. We slowly follow her to his brother's bedroom door. She walks straight in to find him sitting at his computer, still jerking it to some pee. Everybody freaks out and screams. Me and my pal are rolling around the freaking floor laughing. Never laughed again as hard as I did that day. I love how he kept beating it after you guys walked in and on top of it didn't lock the door after. When I was a kid I had this habit of getting up in the middle of the night to get a drink. I shared a rickety wooden bunk bed with my brother. I got the bottom bunk. One night I awoke to go and get myself a drink and barely made it out of the bedroom door when I heard this horrible crash. Turned around and my parents burst out of their bedroom and asked what happened. We rushed back to my bedroom and the wooden planks that supported the top mattress had all caved in and split, stabbing into the bottom mattress where I'd been laying maybe 30 seconds prior. My brother didn't even wake up. Wow, chilling. I'm a huge Billy Joel fan. And at a concert a few years back I had really terrible nosebleed seats. As I was putting my straw into my drink while in the 400 level, a man walked up to me and asked, "Hey, how are your seats to the show?" I replied, "Not great, but we were just excited to be there." He then told us how he was part of Billy's tour staff, and at each show Billy liked to find people with not great seats and move them up. free of charge. Within 30 seconds I went from super high up to the second row center on the floor. It was absolutely amazing. I had the time of my life, and all because I happened to be in the right place at the right time to be approached by someone on his staff. I heard Billy Joel does this at his concerts, so it's not just rich people in the front seats. I was 6 years old and running past this guy's house and he busts out and starts yelling at me. I get scared, but he eventually gets me to stop and gives me free football tickets, Canadian, BC Lions, to a game he couldn't make it to. My dad took me that night. Was a good time. I was riding a motorcycle solo several miles south of Phnom Penh when the chain slipped off. I coasted to a stop right in front of a motorcycle repair shop. I was waiting to pull out of my parking row at school and the kid in the car in front of me decided to back up for some reason. Backed up right into my car. The kid's insurance looked at my car and wrote me a check for $3,000 for the damage. Ended up fixing the car myself for about $300 and pocketed the rest. I was around 8 years old and with my family on our yearly MLK Jr. weekend trip to a dude ranch in NY. The ranch had an arcade and, as a kid, I spent a lot of my time in that arcade but often without the funds to fully enjoy it. I was good at them and so sometimes I'd get covered to fill out someone's squad, but usually I had to depend on the rare bingo win or raiding coin returns and clawing under machines for coinage. My favorite and least played game was Cruising USA because it cost a whole $1 to play. This particular year, I'd been stashing away quarters all week with plans to cruise the crap out of the USA on our last day of the trip. Last day arrives, and I deposit my first 4 coins. To receive no credits, none. On the verge of an entire emotional breakdown, I went to the front desk and emotionally plead my case. My mom tried to convince me to let it go and join her for a last horseback ride, but I was having none of it. I informed the front desk, repeatedly, that I would be waiting by the game for someone to come help. After an eternity, probably 30 minutes max, a guy showed up and I explained the very dire situation to him. He opened the game and proceeded to work on it while I interrogated him about what I was currently seeing as the coolest job ever, arcade game repairman. When he finished, he said that he needed someone to test the functionality of the game for him and did I think I could handle that job. I said yes, of course. He said, you will have to test it extensively. I said, no problem. He said, keep a record of any issues and what might have caused them. I said, done deal. How can I help? He started hitting the credit button inside the machine. I watched the credit counter on screen rocket upwards. He told me to make sure I tested it thoroughly to make sure it worked and then he left. I played Cruising USA for at least 4 hours straight. There were still credits left when my parents pried my fingers from the steering wheel and dragged me out of the arcade. Too cute. I agree your situation was a dire one. I used to work at a sorta fancy restaurant in good ole Iowa City. Unbeknownst to me there were a couple of model scouts holding an open call next door. I picked up a shift for a co-worker and ended up serving the scouts their lunch. Well, they liked me and 3 years later I am a working model in Lanai, Italy, and soon to be Tokyo. 2013, moved states and transferred with my company. Met an employee of a sister company I'd never heard of because it wasn't in my previous state. Went to check it out, and the person assisting me was the guy. He had his boss meet me, asked my boss for transfer to sister company, was accepted, made 3x more money and got promoted a year after to management. I'd never have known it existed if I didn't meet that guy. 10-year-old me. Hanging out with my friend, let's call him Tyler, in his driveway. We both live in a nice suburb, and he has 2 dogs, plus a pool in his backyard, above ground, but not a blow up one. We just recently discovered YouTube and how to work a camera, so we're scheming up a random video to make. Then I hear a noise. Sounds like his pool made a splash noise or something. I mention it to him, but Tyler just shrugs it off, telling me most pools make random noises. He convinces me, and we go back to planning. Maybe 30 seconds later I hear it again, but quieter this time. I stand up and look over his fence, but only see his deck and pool as per usual. We continue planning. It's been 2 minutes since the first time I heard the noise and I hear it a third time. I tell Tyler I want to check it out. Out of curiosity, we open the gates to his backyard and go to the pool. One of his 2 dogs had been outside without either of us knowing. The dog had managed to crawl through not 1, but 2 closed off areas of their deck and jumped into the pool with no ladder, no means of escape. I stick my hands into pool and call the dog's name. Luckily it heard me, swam directly to me, and I pulled her out. To this day I still don't know how close she was to drowning, but I was at the right place at the right time to save that dog's life. Listen to your instincts when they tell you something is off. That's lucky, both for the dog and Tyler's parents. My grandpa had a dog fall into his above ground pool, and instead of drowning the dog shredded the liner trying to get out. Gramps came home to a wet yard and a wet dog standing in a foot of water at the bottom of the pool. At about 2 AM, I was at a friend's place, across from a gas station, when we heard a car rev its engine, then brake squeal, then engine revving again, then a loud crash. In an instant, the house was lit by a wall of fire. I looked out and saw the gas station with a wall of flames 60 to 80 featuring long spread across the front of the pumps with a Corvette in the middle of the flames. I yelled to my friend to grab her cat and evacuate to the back alley as I ran to the kitchen and grabbed her fire extinguisher. As I ran to the fire, I saw a guy about 100 feet away from the car, so I yelled, "Is anyone in the car?" He said, "No, it's gonna blow." I ran to the hole where the gas pump that the car hit to put out the fire there. After it was out, I grabbed a fire X off a pole. I put most of the car out and then got another fire X from the propane area and put out the rest of the car and the gas pump fire. I got free hot chocolate for life from the manager of the gas station. My friend said I was very brave, but I should not have done what I did without shoes and socks and only in a t-shirt and shorts. Right place, right time, no time for shoes or socks. Dude, that's awesome. Last winter I lost my wedding band. It's titanium, so not resizable, and after losing some weight it became a little too loose. I realized I had lost it after snowboarding in the park with my cousin. My best guess was that it fell while taking my gloves on and off, and I had all but written it off as a $200 loss. 3 months later the snow has finally thawed out, and it's time to start cleaning up the backyard. Not 5 minutes into my work do I bend down to pick up a small piece of stuffing from a dog toy, and sure enough, sitting next to the stuffing is my wedding band. It must have fallen off at some point while I was letting the dogs out to the bathroom, but how it ended up in that corner of the yard I can't figure out. Before I picked it up, I snapped a photo to show my wife, because I knew she wouldn't believe it either. The chances of finding an item I lost on my own property gotta be pretty high, but it was purely by chance that I was in that part of the yard and that I happened to look immediately down at it. Lucky, my wedding ring has been at the bottom of a lake since 2011. I'm currently in Singapore, and as I was walking through a park with my friend, we saw an old man riding a bicycle. The poor old guy ended up sneezing while riding his bike and his dentures flew out and landed right in front of my friend. At first I couldn't believe it until the guy started laughing as he reached for his dentures, and soon enough my friend and I were dying as well. I've never laughed that hard before, so it's an amazing memory. This story is 100% real. I was lockpicking chests in our down back in 2002 or so. Next to me is this bearded fellow in full rune, aside from a blow party hat on his head. He notices that I keep healing up every time the chest damages me to a certain point and tells me, "You don't need to heal. The chests can't kill you." I said I don't believe him, but thanks for the advice. He says, "LOL, watch," and proceeds to kill himself on the chest, dropping his blue party hat. He PM'd me and said he thought he wouldn't die and if he could please have his P hat back. I said no. Then my mom screamed at me to go to bed, and I've never been as excited in my entire life. But I had to go to bed, though. Nice. Several years ago, my family was taking a stroll in the neighborhood when my mother wanted to try a different route. The 3 of us were enjoying our walk when we heard someone calling for help. It turned out an old lady had fallen down and couldn't get back up. She had some broken bones and blood was everywhere. So we called 911 and stayed with her until help arrived. Had we not deviated from our normal route, the woman could have died. Went to see Foo Fighters in London last week, and as it was Tuesday night and I'd had a long day at work, we decided to go stand at the back after about an hour. Was stood there for all of 5 minutes and all of a sudden I saw a man who looked like Mozart. That man looks like Mozart. I said to my boyfriend, you do realize who that person is? Brian May. It was Brian May just casually walking through the bar at the O2. Wouldn't have got to see such a legend if we decided to stay in the crowd as we'd planned. This is the only one so far where I'm actually jealous. Brian May. I was with my boyfriend at the time and we checked into our hotel in Las Vegas. We were riding the elevator with a random person who had their hands full and was carrying a pair of Cirque du Soleil tickets. I made a comment to him about how I heard it was a great show and he asked me if I had seen it or if I had plans to see it. I told him no, I hadn't seen it and the tickets weren't in the budget for the trip. The guy thought about it for a second and handed me the tickets. Said that they came comped with his room. He usually would take his wife but he was on a solo trip and didn't really plan on going to see the show. My jaw dropped and I thanked him about 20 times before he got off the elevator. Went to turn in my job application that was going to be my dream job. I went with another guy and we turned ours in at the same time. The girl behind the desk seemed like a new hire and didn't say anything when we turned them in. Probably had dozens turned in a day. But on the way out I ran into the owner's girlfriend who I had met recently. We started talking and the girl behind the desk was baffled at this loud girl. When asked she said that she was the owner's girlfriend. We said our goodbyes and left. A week later I get a job to see if I want a job. The other guy who turned his application in at the same time never heard back from them. I'm convinced talking to the owner's girlfriend got me noticed so that the secretary didn't immediately throw my application in the trash. And because of that I've been in the video game industry for the past 30 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.